Welcome to another edition of Talking Wit, WIT, Kevin and Son. This episode is brought to you by RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. I am Kevin McLemore. I am your host. Our mission is through the power of stories. We want to uplift. We want to share our stories through our voices, inspire, share experiences and perspectives using the framework of teaching, learning, and modeling. Our purpose is very simple, it's hope. We focus on people in our communities that are doing great things and people you should know. This story today is a very personal story. I have two people that are in my life, in my community, that I personally know and personally love, both of them. They're two amazing people. We have a story that most parents wish they didn't have to tell. But this is a story that not only united a community, strengthened the bonds of a family, even though it broke many of our hearts. This is a story that needs to be told that brought a community together. This is a story about Jax, a 7-year-old boy that had to face an unquestionable battle, and he faced it. He faced it like an adult warrior going into battle. He was an amazing young man. He was an inspiration not only to his teammates here in Phoenixville, his community. He was an amazing person to every adult that ever stepped into his space. He always had a smile. He danced like no one was watching. His Instagram page lit up like the 4th of July. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome two people, two wonderful people, Mr. Brian and Meghan Thorburn. And this is the story of Jax. Welcome to Talking with Kevin and Son. How you guys doing?
Thank you, Kevin.
Great. Thanks,
Doing good. Yeah.
Yeah. For our listeners, and the reason why I am doing this, and I'm doing this very early on, this is a story that had a tragic ending. But every tragedy does not always have to end, and Jack's legacy is not ending. I just want to tell my guests right now, I am not going to go over the 5 stages of grief, and we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to put the family through this, but through the story, you'll understand that we all hit these markers. We all deal with them in a different way. I've always said that, there's no such thing as an original story. The only stories that become original is based on location, the cast of characters, and how the outcome of that story is to be told. This is an original story. August 8th, 2020, this story that it began 6 years prior to where we're at right now, with a baby boy coming into this world. It's the second of 2 children. The remaining son is Chase. Meghan and Brian had welcomed this young bundle of joy in. And I don't know the story in detail. I just know the story that I've been privy to share. But I do know they're going to share some resources, how they overcome, how they dealt with it. So with that said, and I'm going to stop running my mouth, we'd like to hear about Jax and how this story came to be and why we're even doing this interview.
So I guess in August of 2020, Jax showed symptoms of what I would call allergy type symptoms. Stuffy nose, runny nose, sore throat, sort of congested to the point of vomiting, I guess. And, with a kid like that, 7 years old, he would go jump on the trampoline, come inside, throw up, then go back outside, jump on the trampoline, say, what are we doing next? So I didn't really think too much about it, right? Kids are resilient like that. Until one day, it happened to be 3 or 4 days of that. And he started sort of not eating, not drinking, spiked a high fever. And that's when, mother's instinct was like, this is something that is not right. So we took him to the ER, and, this is all happening when COVID started. So I guess the excuse of the doctors was, it's a virus. He just caught something. There's so many strands out there.
Allergies.
Sometimes when you're congested, goes into your stomach, and that can make your stomach upset and you vomit, right? So they said, okay, well, watch the fever, send us home, and that's it. So, with Jax, he lived every day to the fullest. He would look at me in the morning and say, what are we doing today? What are the 10 activities that we're doing? So that's just how he was. He could be sick as a dog and he'd be like, let's go to Sky Zone and shoot hoops. So, he definitely did not rally this time around. And we ended up the next day back in the ER again. And I had been sort of Googling and researching, and Mother's Instinct had a hunch that it was something worse, and had a friend in the ER who also had a hunch and said, you know what, I think I'm going to send you to DuPont. And with that, that's when I knew it was definitely more serious than that. So we go to DuPont, they do a biopsy, and it was almost like a movie where the nurses come over to us and you could tell by the looks on their faces that this is terminal. Something is really bad. And they literally put us in a closet in a room and said, he has a massive brain tumor. And it's very rare in children. And so from that day forward, our whole life, changed. He was a completely healthy kid up until that point, a rock star football player, loved to play with his friends, loved to dance. So we never had a sign of a brain tumor. It was called an anaplastic astrocytoma, which grows in your motor control, sort of like a spider. And that was one that they would not be able to operate on. He also had another one behind his eyeballs and his occipital area. And that one they did operate on. So sounds like you want to interject a little bit.
I would just say that he, when they first told us about it, we realized that we had to, learn more about exactly what it was. They knew that there was a tumor, so we had to go to DuPont to get a biopsy first. It was at that biopsy that we learned the stage that he was in at that moment in time. So we knew there was a tumor. We knew that there was something wrong, but we didn't know the gravity of it yet at that point. As Meghan will tell you, and I believe wholeheartedly, that you sort of know as a parent, like you sort of feel that deep down, like, I can tell by looking at her, she knew that this wasn't going to be good, but you always have hope, right? So you needed to hear what the tests were and where we were really at. I remember he had the biopsy, and then we were able to go home, and that's when we went down to Avalon, and we had to wait for the results. And we went down to the beach where he loved to go more than life. That was the place that he just loved to be at, was the beach, just like his mom. So we were down there and we were waiting for the phone call. At that point in time, we kept everything to ourselves, Meghan and I, because we didn't know yet what we were dealing with, the gravity of what we were dealing with. And
that was going to be my next question. Because both, Brian, you're very successful in the industry of fitness. Your wife is also at the top of her game of being one of the top fitness influencers here on the East Coast, working at Lifetime. And you kept this to yourself. Did life go on as usual, or did you? Because I know with most people, it's like, this can't happen to me. This is not happening. We've got to find a fix and whatever. You kept it to yourself. Did you continue to work? Did you continue to function as normal? Did you continue to interact with family and friends?
Yeah, I mean, we to a level we did, because again, we didn't know what we were dealing with, but I think on the surface you saw us as the family that everybody knows, right? Meghan can go into Lifetime and be the rock star and the mayor of Lifetime, and everybody sees her and knows her, and she can interact and see great on the outside. I can still do my job and work and do things. We could still be there for Chase in our community, as we were, but we knew behind the scenes that we were dealing with something, and we didn't know quite what it was yet. We were concerned and scared, but we weren't going to let Jack see that. We weren't going to let anybody see that at that moment in time until we really knew what we were dealing with. And when we got the call, I mean, I'll never forget it. We were sitting there on the beach, and we had to take the call, and I mean, both of us just crumbled, and we realized that it was like the moment that we had to figure out what was the next steps, what we were going to do now. We had actually scheduled a family portrait for that day.
We had a family photo shoot.
We had a family photo shoot planned on the beach that day.
Yeah, and we were bawling our eyes out.
And we had to go back to the house to change, to get ready to go to it. And we were like, we just have to.
We were in such shock.
We drove to the house to change, and like, I don't think we said a word. Like, we were just.
And I was literally Googling everything about this brain tumor that I possibly could.
Yeah, you just go.
If there was success rate, what the prognosis was. I mean, I know doctors say don't do that, but he was telling me what the results were, and as he's telling me, I'm like 0 to 5 years. I just was going to town figuring out how we're going to deal with it.
I mean, he told us straight up, you'd be lucky if you'll have a year. Yeah. And that was, you don't ever want to hear that, but you also want to know where you stand at the same breath, right? So it was like, okay. We then had to quickly decide how we were going to explain it to Jax, explain it to the family, explain it to everybody, right? And so you have to internalize that for a second. And then you have to feel like you're strong and you can take it on. And then you have to kind of be around everybody. So I know we both wanted to crawl in a hole and just cry, but we had a family picture. We had this moment with our kids that you don't ever want to lose and change. And you want them to just be happy. So we got to the beach, we did our pictures, and we had to tell him, and we told him. And when we explained it to him, there's a moment in time in which he sort of set the tone for us, right? So the opposite happened, where you think, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how we're going to deal with this. And then all of a sudden, this little 7-year-old looks up at you and just says okay. He hears it. We explained to him that he's sick. He doesn't quite understand what that all means 100%, but we told him he is going to be in a really big fight, and it's going to be really hard, and it's going to be tough. And he doesn't understand what cancer is, right? I mean, he's 7 years old at the time. We never used the word, terminal. We never used any of those things. We consulted with some resources at the hospital, social workers who are just wonderful people. And, they said you have to use the word because it's going to get out, right? And so you want to be the one that explains it to your son. So we used the word cancer. We told him that he was going to be sick and he was going to have a really, really big fight ahead of him. But we were going to be there for him. We were going to make sure that we did everything we could. And I think at that moment, and Meghan can contest to this, it's this kid just looked at us and was like, yeah, okay.
He was like, we'll do it. So, I got it.
All right. Are we still surfing today? That was all he cared about. And so it was that moment in time that you're just you look at it and you're like, this kid, we just told him that he is going to be sick. He is going to be really, really in a fight. And it's going to be tough and it's going to be hard. And all he wanted to do was just surf and hang out at the beach and live. And it's kind of like that moment we looked at one another and we're like, okay.
Flip that switch.
Flip it.
We're gonna do it.
Let's just do it. This kid wants to live. He wants to be happy. And let's go.
We're gonna make every day Disney World for this kid up until the day.
So he decided to say, basically, hey, Dad, Mom, I'm strong. I got this. Let's go. And I mean, that changed my life forever. Like that moment right there, like just made me realize how somebody can decide to take an opportunity like this, where most of you would just crumble and just go, whatever, I go, let's go. I'll take it on. And he just wanted to be happy, right? He used to say a lot, like, you know, hey, Dad, we used to just every sport you can think of, right? So, and he used to joke all the time. He'd be like, hey, Dad, I'm just different. I'm just built different. And that used to always just hit me, like that. Those things about he used to say to me, like, I'm just different, Dad. Like I'm built different. And I mean, there was a moment in time. So after he had we found out that he had the biopsy, and then they operated on a part of the tumor that they could get.
Okay, so side note, we were at DuPont when he had the biopsy. I had this angel of a friend from high school reach out to me who I haven't spoken with in 20 years.
You can say her name.
Katie, she reached out to me from California and she said, listen, I know you're at DuPont and it's a great hospital, but you have to connect with my friend Cassie Klein. She's on her way, like heading up CHOP oncology, pediatric oncology. And I don't know if she's taking any more patients, but I'm going to reach out to her. And I called her up and I said, CHOP is, by the way, one of the best for peds and brain surgery and this and that. And DuPont did not want to operate on the tumor behind Jax's eye. And we sort of wanted a second opinion. And I had been through cancer with my mother, and I sort of was like, no, I'm not going to take that for an answer. So when this opportunity came to us, we got him into CHOP and we had that consultation. And Jay Storm was the surgeon who is the best, I think, in my mind. He said, whenever there's a tumor and it's operable without side effects, you get it out. And so we scheduled that surgery for October 5th. And one of the symptoms of a brain tumor are seizures. And before we went to surgery, literally like surgery scheduled Monday, he had a seizure on Friday night. And he just, I'm not going to go into that.
That was like one of the worst
really, really scary and really awful.
I want to pull back. I want to pull back the layer to the story before we go through how he was treated, because I know between the two parents, when you say that you guys basically wanted life to go on, Jax also has an older brother, and the hard part with having something traumatic, and I understand, I don't know if a 7-year-old understands what terminal is, the definition versus living or not being here 2 years from now, but he's got an older brother that understands the clear definition of terminal. How did that discussion from the family pictures go with his older brother?
Yeah, so we made a decision that we couldn't. So Chase at the time was
12
or 13.
12.
Yeah, 12, 13. In between 12 and 13 years of age, right? We all know, Kevin, as a guy, 12, 13, everything starts to change, right? So you're going through some change in life in general, right, to begin with, right? Struggling hard times as a young adult to begin with. And we made the decision at the time that it was Meghan and I were going to take on most of everything, right? We wanted to let them two brothers, enjoy their time without any sort of cloud around it, right? Without like letting anything dampen that. We told Chase and Jack that he had cancer. We never used the word terminal. We never said that he had X amount of time. We were going to let them both live their life to the fullest without that well, how much time is left? Like looking at a clock. We didn't want them looking at a clock. We didn't want them to be concerned. We wanted them just to enjoy themselves together. So Chase knew that he had cancer, but didn't know the gravity of it at the time because we just couldn't.
We were
there was
trying
no
to keep it
playbook,
positive.
right? There was
And-
nothing to figure out if it was right to say it, not to say it, and we just wanted. And Jax set the tone when he's like, "Listen, just let's go surf, let's play, let's do this." Like, you don't want to then make it seem like, well, we got to cram all this in because of this. We just wanted to say he just wants to live. He wants to be an 8-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old boy, just live and love life. And we weren't going to let his brother feel as though things had to be different. Just enjoy yourself, right? Like he knew that he was going to be, that it was going to be tough. We let him know that things at time, as time went on, we were letting him in a little bit more that like, this is getting very serious, right? Without kind of saying it. And I don't know if that was right or wrong at the end of the day, right? On how to deal with it. But,
and that's the reason why I asked the question. And for the simple fact is because when you're going through these situations, and Meghan, you said that, you know, you battled this with your mom. There's always more questions than there are answers. There's no right or wrong. People are going to view this and says, why didn't you do this and whatever. Everyone faces. I mean, I'm going through it with my mom today. I've talked to Meghan about it. My mom told me at 89 years old, she'll be 90 in a few weeks. I was being very selfish in the way that I was doing. It was hard for me to take. But I also want you guys to know when someone's going to use this interview, your life story, Jack's story, as a blueprint on how to have these conversations, how to deal with it. And I just wanted to have you guys say there's no right or wrong answer, is that you're in the moment and you make the best decisions in the moment. And your son is going to look back at this and he's going to have to understand too, because at some point it will catch up to him in life. Something's going to remind him. And he's going to have to look back and says, you know something, I got 2 world-class parents that love me. And our position as a father and a mother is sometimes protect them from things that most people will say that we don't need to protect them from. But that's what we do as parents. We protect our children. And I wanted to make sure that this dialogue was out there because this is going to be played back thousands of times all over the world. And it's going to land home with someone, and some other people are going to be critics and says, this is what you're going to do or should be done. So I just wanted to make sure that got out there. Now,
yeah. Go ahead.
No. So I don't know if this is a long story short, but how do you get who do you ask the right questions, and what do you ask? How do you articulate from emotions versus how do we get the best help for our child right now? What's the blueprint for this? How do we set this up for someone else? What do you do?
I think we decided we wanted to take everything in sort of hurdles or stages. So what's the plan, right? Talk to the doctor. What's the next step? What's our next step? Surgery was Jax's next step. So that was our first hurdle. Then we knew he would be dealing with chemo and radiation after that. But we didn't really go into that yet. We're like Brian said, let's just take each step as it comes, and we will keep it positive, and we will, be honest with Chase about it, and go through what we need to go through. Right? I mean,
yeah. You lean on the resources you have at the hospital first and foremost. They're wonderful. I mean, the hospitals have so many resources for people that you don't even know are out there, number one, right? So there's social workers there are incredible. They help you with understanding how to navigate. I mean, as a parent, sometimes you struggle about worry about the financial impact of something like this to a family, right? They were able to help us understand that, like, hey, listen, you should go do this, this, and this, boom, boom, boom. Did all those sort of administrative things to get that off and clear your head. And they were really great with that. They help you with all the resources in the community that's out there. And then you kind of see how your community comes together at that point in time, right? And that's when you don't even have an opportunity to like be down in a way. Jax made it so that you weren't going to feel sad. You weren't going to feel disappointed. You weren't going to do it. And then the community sort of saw that. And so then the community fed it back to us as parents, right? So it started with the one family making a shirt that said Jax Strong. And then that just started where everybody started wearing it. And then Meghan started a thing on Facebook with Warriors and Warriors for Jax. And then she started teaching classes out in the sunroom for all of her people. And Jax would go in there with her. And people would see that. And people would see that this kid is
dancing around.
And holy cow. I mean, there was a moment, he had brain surgery on like a Monday. Tuesday afternoon, we're throwing a football in the hallway at the hospital, and we're getting yelled at because we're throwing footballs. This kid just didn't let anything get him down. Like, he took 7 medications at night at one point in time, 7 different medications at night. And he used to call his friends he used to FaceTime his friends and be like, watch me, I'm going to take my medication.
Like, look how strong I am.
Look how strong I am. He would go down to radiation and get chemo, go down and get chemotherapy, and he would make a TikTok dance after with his mom, and people would just laugh, and he would just dance after radiation treatment. This kid, we still do it today. It's the funniest thing. Meghan hates it, but I love it because it reminds me of him. He used to get into the car. He would sit next to me in the car. We would wait for Meghan to come out to the car to go down and drive down into the city and get treatment. And Meghan would walk around towards the front of the car, and Jax would lay there like this. He was sleeping in the car if he was tired, and he would open up one eye. He would smirk, and he would see his mom coming. He would quickly beep the horn to scare her and startle her as she walked by the front of the car.
Worked every time.
And he'd go, Gotti. And he would like, yeah. And it was the funniest thing. And he just had that, like, I mean, here's a kid having to get into a car and drive 45 minutes, sometimes 2 hours in traffic.
Every single day.
And he would find a way to like make somebody laugh on the way down. So when that kid sets that tone, how else can you be as a family, right? Like, and then your community sees it, and then they come back and they give it back to you. And you go, oh my gosh. Like, I mean, there was times in which we were so high on life because of this kid, you almost forgot what was going on.
Yeah. And one of the things I want to add is, and I mean, we know so many people in our community. My parents were born and raised in Phoenixville, and just growing up playing sports and whatever, you get hounded with phone calls and text messages, and you're trying to process all of this. So we started a Caring Bridge website, and that was a way for everybody to sort of see where we're at in our treatment and give updates and post pictures of how he was doing and post videos of him dancing in the hospital and just showing everybody how strong he was and where we were at with everything, so that you didn't really feel obligated to answer questions or, text messages or emails or whatever. And fortunately, I have friends that have lost children. And for me, this was all during COVID when we were taking 52 walks a day outside. I would walk around the block and really lean on them for support. You have to find your people that you can trust to talk to and who will listen to. And that's something we've always said. We have to, take care of our own selves before we take care of them. So, Brian and I sat down in a restaurant one day, like, how are we going to deal with this? And we were like, you know what, if you need to go take 2 hours and work out at Lifetime, or if you need to go on the trail for a run, you go do it. I'll hang back with Jax, or I'll pick up where, you need me. And he would say, I'm at 10% today, Meghan, or something. And that's still what we deal with now. We'll say, today I got nothing. All right, well, I'm going to be the 90%, right? And vice versa. So that's just like little tips, and you can use, I guess, to, handle the community, because you sort of get inundated with the meal trains and the flowers and everybody showing up at your house and this and that. So just.
Yeah, you have to learn to use the community. They're a great resource. They're great at helping you get through things, and they totally have changed they've changed our outlook on life as a whole. To know that they came together for us. I mean, we kind of laugh about, I think about it in the fitness industry in a way in which, like, we work in this community, right? Everybody goes to a gym for a sense of community, a sense of feeling, a sense of being together. I think when COVID hit and everything, everybody went away from the gym, and then you kind of come back into the gym, you realize that miss that you had in that community and how important it was. You think you can work out at home and you can be there, but you want that sense of community. Sometimes you love it, sometimes you hate it, sometimes they know too much about everything, but in the end of the day, it's that sense of belonging that makes you feel so strong and powerful. And they did that for us. And I often realize now in what we do in this industry, Meghan and I have been in this health and fitness industry for almost our entire life, that you have an impact that you can make when you touch people every single day by just remembering their names and just saying hi to them. And she is, I mean, you see it, Kevin, you're there at the club, and she's wonderful.
Over the top.
Yeah.
She's the mayor.
And to know that community taught us that being that way, and Jax, more importantly, taught us about the fact that when life is like this, you can crumble, right? Or you instead can embrace it and say, I'm going to not let the world see pain. I'm not going to let the world see this struggle. I'm going to let them see that I'm going to take it on, and I'm going to have this attitude about it, and I'm going to stay positive about it. It doesn't mean that you don't, like, listen, we've had moments, like, we've broken down and cried, and we have, like, I've spent hours in a car crying, or in the shower crying. We have moments of weakness, right? We're not this super strong.
Oh, I would cry in the shower.
Yeah, like super strong, like, family, right? Like, we have this balance, right? But in the end, when this kid showed us this is the way that we're going to be, you can see that, like, that goes out to the community. And the way that she is, when I'm there at Lifetime and you see me and I'm watching her, like, that radiance that she has inside of there, and the impact that other people feel about that, and the way that she can feel that, like, make people feel about just saying hi and knowing their name and recognizing them and talking to them and caring about them, is what Jax sort of taught us in our community. And I mean, she's the most incredible spirit of that. And I can see that impact. I can see what it does to a community. And that's why I believe that this industry, like, helps us, like, realize that the power of that you have that power in you, and you should never take it lightly. Like, it's power.
And I'm going to piggyback off of the conversation you're having when you talk about the industry and how people rally behind you. And for those of us that are just tuning in, that are watching this in sound bites, we are talking about the story of Jax. JAX', not Jack. An amazing young man whose time had come, way, and ended too soon. A young man, when you talk about dancing like no one's watching, he danced every day. I remember one of those stories when Meghan brought him in after he had come home from surgery, and he was, I remember that video of you and the kids doing that little dance with your arms going back and forth and whatever. Where most adults would have fallen apart, Jack was, and I don't know how many of my listeners are spiritual, but he was that gift. He was someone that was put on earth in order to fill the hearts of everyone that he came encountered with. And I like the way that you preface it. And we're going to talk about how you started the foundations and what the plan was going forward. I'm not going to go into the detail or put this family through. We know how the life of Jax ended, but it's beginning because his legacy is going to continue. I'm not going to put this family through this. We don't need to know, because the people that support this show, they don't drive by an accident. They stop and help. That's the reason why we're doing this, because I'm going to ask all of my listeners across this globe, to help this family and to help to keep the conversation of Jackson, what he did for people that he didn't even know, keep it alive. So, Meghan or Brian, if people wanted to get in touch with you to learn about your foundation, which we're going to go into detail later on, I just want to know your social media. How do we get in touch with you? How do we get you guys to come and speak at events? Because this story needs to be told on layers. You guys are inspiration through tragedy of how people should prepare and how people should deal, because you guys are honest. There's no right answer, but there's lots of questions, and you guys are addressing the questions while we're all looking for answers. How do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the easiest way, I mean, social media today is so powerful, right? So Jax Strong, JAXSTRONG Foundation, all one word, on Instagram. It's probably the easiest way to start, because in there we have a link to his foundation, which we created to give back to the community that had our back forever, right? To give back to the community that helped us when we needed it most. We started his foundation to do that, and we've been like we've been so blessed to be able to touch so many different aspects of the community. Whether it would be the local sports programs that he participated in, whether it be the actual CHOP hospital that we will just simply go down and send a water ice truck out there for all the nurses that helped them throughout that, because we wanted to give back to what they did, to the families that we you want to talk about the family that we...
The Jack Strong Foundation was formed initially to help local families going through what we went through, battling cancer. Whether it's an adult or a child, it started out as children, but we sort of were like, well, the spirit of Jax is he was that kid that would talk to, a special needs kid in class and play with him at recess. He was the kid that talked to the kid that nobody talked to. I was always getting, phone calls from teachers saying just what a wonderful kid he was, because he was sharing and he was always helping out. So that's what we wanted to do. It was helping us to heal, to help others. And we started the foundation first and foremost because of that. But then it sort of led to, well, let's give kids opportunities maybe in sports, somebody who can't financially play a sport in our community. And so we've donated to PMYC, and we've done some different events there. The basketball teams, we sponsor them. Chase's basketball teams, we sponsor. But basically now we want to move forward and talk about where it's going.
Yeah. So
can I cut you off for 1 second? Because
Sure.
I want to talk about that, and I know our listeners, but I also want to piggyback. I want to go back, and Brian, you said something about your industry, and I want to make sure that I give props to the fitness industry, because fitness industries normally they take more than they can give. And for men, we have a tendency when these things happen in our life, we wear that face that we are that rock, and we know that we're fragile. But you have a company that you work for, and I think it warrants at this point for you to be able to talk about a company that rallied behind this family in detail, not only when you were going through this process, but also where you're going forward with the process and building this foundation and incorporating the family and your son going forward. Can you tell us a little bit how your company, by name, supported you in going through this? Because a lot of times we're just employees. Your company is much bigger than that. And I think while we're telling this story, this should be part of the story going forward. And other companies should use this as a template to say, well, you're not a part of just employment. You're part of an organization that's actually run by human beings that actually care. Can you share some of that?
Sure. So I work for a company called Matrix Fitness. We are now today the largest commercial exercise equipment provider in the industry. So a lot of the equipment a lot of the industry uses comes from us. And they have become like a family for me when it comes down to it. Nothing was ever, I think the first time I had to explain to the people that I work with what was happening, everybody just simply said, you go spend time with your family. We'll be here when you're ready. Like, we don't, there was not a hesitation on their part to just say, this is your time with them. You take all that you need. I've had the luxury of working with a particular person for like 20 some years. Her name is Phyllis. And she's kind of like a second mom in a way. Megan's known her for my whole family's known her.
Love you, Phyllis.
Yeah. She's been like a rock to us. And so she was there every single day to like take a phone call. And we never talked about work. I don't think I talked about work for a year. If I had to, because I wanted to, it was there, but they were wonderful to me. I mean, they were completely wonderful to me. And I will be eternally grateful for their support in that respect. I mean, nobody ever wants to have to no company wants to have to deal that with their employees. Nobody ever, there's again, no playbook for it. But when you just kind of in your heart know what's the right thing to do, you just do it. And they just did it. They just never even asked about it. So that was wonderful. One other thing I wanted to mention too was that, from a business standpoint and from business and doing things, there was one thing about Jax that Jax used to love to watch Shark Tank. Like, it was the funniest thing ever. Like, I don't know what it was, but he just used to love watching Shark Tank. So Megan and I and Jax used to watch Shark Tank in bed, and we would be like, Jax would be like, oh, so often, what does that guy do? And he should take the deal and blah, blah. And it was the funniest thing. And so when Jax was sick and we were watching the community make these t-shirts for Jax, he wanted to figure out how to help back to the kids that he would see in the hospital. Right. So he would go to the hospital and he would see these kids and he would be like, Dad, that kid's in a wheelchair. Like, what's wrong with him? And I'm like, well, he has cancer too, but he has a little bit different cancer. And Jax couldn't understand why he would dance and feel like this, but other kids would be in a wheelchair. And so he was being Jax. And he was just like, well, everybody does this for me. People make these t-shirts for me, and everybody comes together for me. And we do all these things for me all the time. I mean, we had a birthday party for him that I think took 5 hours to do, a train of cars and like a parade that was like parade. Unbelievable. I mean, it was
over 500 cars.
500 cars coming through. It was party, like the whole front yard it was unbelievable. Right? So he knows all this community coming together, and he was looking at these other kids going, what's going on with them? Like, how come their community is not coming together for them, or what can we do? So like Shark Tank. So he's like, one of the things he used to say to us is like, hey, I'm strong. I can handle this. So I thought of that name, Armstrong, and we started Jackson and I and Megan and our whole family decided to like kind of come together, and we built a business of where we were able to brand clothes for other families that we found that were struggling like we are.
Stay still.
Right.
It was called Armstrong. And what we did was we decided to let other families and communities that were going through the same things we were to let us know about their story. And we would take their kids' names, just like we had Jack Strong clothing made. We would design for the kids, whatever was specific to them, their own clothing. And we would put them up on our site, and we would allow that community to go and purchase those things, those items for their community and for their child, or whoever was struggling. And all the proceeds we would give to the family. So that was Jax's sort of business sort of style, right? Which was like, hey, I want to do something for this family. I said, well, I think I'm strong. That sounds cool. Let's like do something, and then we can do this and we can design this. And he was like, yeah. So we would sit around, we would design things. We would send the links out to the family. The families would send it out to their community. Their community would rally around that kid, and we just would take whatever profit, 100% of the profits we just gave to the families on anything that they did. And that was Jax's sort of way of his little Shark Tank. He was super excited. It was really, really fun. We had a lot of fun doing it. And I mean, as a business model, it's not a fun business model to create a business model where you give away 100% of your profits. So we were using a lot of the money that the foundation, we were using a lot of the money that the foundation, his foundation was creating to help support that business. And we've been doing that for a couple of years. And most recently, we've decided to really do something that we feel is going to be huge and impactful to the community in particular that is given back to us. Jax would have graduated in 2031. And so there's a community that, as you've heard throughout this whole podcast, that has just been tremendous to us. And Jax's grade and Jax's class that will be graduating in 31, we are now focusing our entire efforts on partnering with the Chester County Community Organization to create the Jax Thorburn Memorial Scholarship, where our goal is to raise over $100,000 in scholarships for the class of 31 to give back to the community and to those kids to hopefully change, like dramatically change some family's life that would never be able to send their kid off to maybe school, that wouldn't have been able to afford it, to a kid and to a family that really we as parents always live to set your kids up to be, you know, successful, right? To be more successful than you are. We are blessed, beyond blessed, to have a son in Chase that is a superstar, rock star. Super proud of the kid, everything he's been through. He's on the right path. He's just going to be a great kid. I can't even, like, he's tremendous.
Yeah, he's going to be a great baller too. I saw him in the gym with his basketball skills, dunking on his dad. Dunking on his dad.
Yeah.
That's sorry. So
we wouldn't have had that opportunity, right? So we wanted to give back to that exact community of where he would have been when he graduated.
To his actual class.
So we're going to be going and partnering with Phoenixville High School, and we're going to be offering every opportunity to that graduating class of Jax's, where our goal is to raise over $100,000 over the next couple of years to provide scholarships to as many kids as we can impact and help, and families that we can help. So that's our foundation's strongest focus. And we do one of our biggest fundraisers is our annual pub crawl that we do in Phoenixville, which is April 27th.
Called Pints for a Purpose.
You guys are so far ahead of me. So Pints for a Purpose, it's here in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. If you want to travel, you can come. So how did Pints for Pennsylvania started off? I figured this was Jack's favorite beverage. That's the reason why we're doing pints.
Yeah, no. Actually, this is another example of the community, coming at us. There is a neighborhood in Phoenixville where we know a lot of people, and a total stranger called Dan Kane at the time.
Wonderful family just gave us a call and said, listen, I've been doing Pints for a Purpose in honor of my friend who had, I think it was testicular cancer. And it started off in New York, then Philly, and it just took off. And every year I like to do, a new foundation. And I heard your story of Jax, and we're inspired by your family, and we want to do this for you. And that was, the first one was 3 years ago. We're on year 3 this year. So it was such a success and keeps growing every year, that now he just wants to do it for us every year. So Yeah, we got
our third
lucky.
year. And, he has his people from his friend who he lost. And we have our people. And we get between, 300 and 500 people that come to this bar crawl in Phoenixville at the Great American Pub. It starts April 27th. And it's just a really good time. It's a great way to just come together, and it's like all my favorite people in one place. So for me, it's like one big party. But it's raising money. It's one of our biggest money makers right now. And we want to, keep doing this to help form the scholarship. But
yeah, I mean, it's the community coming back, and it's us going back to the community. And what better way to, it doesn't sound like a pub crawl is something that a 7-year-old would have been involved in, but it's the spirit of the pub crawl, right? It's that spirit that's there. That it's that joy, it's that laughter, it's that fun, it's that overall feeling. It's like you can have maybe a golf outing, or you can do this and that, but nothing matches the spirit of just people coming together in a community, in a town, like something like a pub crawl, where they're, by the end of the night, everybody's dancing just like Jax would have been, right? You don't get that on a golf course, right? So it's like, hey, let's just get everybody together and have a big party, because that's what Jax would have wanted to do. And it's great. It's great to see the community. And Dan Kane and Pints for a Purpose have been just a wonderful organization to work with, and to see his community come together with our community together as one. We're blessed, and to know that they just reach out to you because they hear about your story.
Yeah, so many
and
people.
To see how, like, that again is another example of a community just making you feel so.
It's almost like
good.
As much pain as you're going through, these are the little joys that you find, and the happy moments that help you get through these hard times.
Yeah, and in life, no one can do this one thing we call life alone. And for your listeners, that if you want to go through an experience to see a whole town with tie-dyed shirts, and sharing the love and whatever, there's no drama. It's always positive. There's lots of hugs and kisses, tons of laughter. Parking is limited. So yeah, Uber there, Uber home. Everyone's responsible. As much as they say there's not, at the end of the day, there's not a dry eye in the crowd, but the laughter goes up to the heavens. Jack knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And like I said, you guys are personal friends, but you guys are friends to thousands of people, because your heart is supersized, and there's no carbohydrates in your heart. There's nothing but 100% of the good stuff. So one more time, the foundation going forward, with the development of creating scholarship, going forward. How do we take part in the upcoming event in April in order to get one of those fancy T-shirts? Donations, large or small, is there a minimal or maximum? How do we do it? Because I know that Jax's football team, they're aging up, and they've done many things for him. They still play, and there's a seat on the bench where his jersey remains.
Yes, we're so grateful for Coach Courtney and all of his Chris Hook and all of his coaches. They honor Jax every year in October at homecoming, where they have all the home games at Phoenixville.
All the kids wear tie-dye socks.
All wear tie-dye socks, and they reserve a seat on the bench with his tie-dye shirt and jersey. And they support the foundation. And, it's just amazing to see that they still do this even after he's gone. And they're like, it's not even a question. He was such an amazing child.
So JaxStrongFoundation.com. So JaxStrong Foundation.com.
All one word.
All one word. that's sort of the home base where you see a lot of the things and a lot of the community outreach that we've done with his foundation today. You can also, even from there, donate $1, 50 cents. It doesn't matter. Everything makes a difference, right? And we grassroot this right now, meaning it's just our community. When you have the community the size of what we do, what we are gracious enough to have, you can grassroots a lot of this, the funds that we're looking to raise. As we start to, as we mentioned, our pub crawl is the biggest event that we have that raises funds. jackstrongfoundation.com. You can go on there and you can see how you can sign up for that, or you can just directly donate on that site as well too. As we start to partner with the Chester County Community Organization and creating his scholarship specifically, we're going to be tapping into those resources from them as to understand how to start to structure some more corporate levels types of sponsorships going forward and having other events to raise more money. Our goal is, like I said, to raise $100,000 over the next couple of years in order to provide a minimum of $100,000 scholarship to that class. But we believe we can far surpass that. And you can use jackstrongfoundation.com to see all the events that we'll be hosting, and all the things that will be leading up to that. And we look forward to creating, again, corporate sponsorships for a lot of the big events that we'll be doing. And I still think there's nothing better than this grassroots sort of foundation. It was like the community that started it and the community that will come together to do this. It's great to take corporate sort of sponsorship, but nothing is better than watching a kid down the street have a lemonade stand and come knocking on your door and just say, hey, I got $20 here in my pocket that I sweated all afternoon for down the street, and I did this for Jack's. And so when you see that those kids do those things, you want to find that kid, you want to find that family that you want to say, Jack's would have wanted made a difference in that kid's life. So our foundation and the scholarships that we hope to raise enough money for will make a difference for that family. For a kid that just takes it upon himself. One of his best friends decided to wants to study oncology. He decided to start to take half of his chore money that he gets from his family and donate it.
So Christmas morning.
Just out of the kindness of his heart.
Yeah, Christmas morning, it was the best present I ever got this year. He knocked on my door, Jackson's best friend, Finn. And he walked into my house and our house and said, I donated half of my, I guess, allowance to St. Jude's in honor of Jack's. And every month I get a postcard saying Finn's donation came through. He's the type of kid that, I mean, what kid thinks to do that, right? At age, what is he now? 12, 13, 12.
No, it's not 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 11, 10 or 11, whatever. It doesn't matter. What kid that young thinks that way, right?
Right.
What kid would just, like, that's the impact that Jack's had with his community and his friends. And to know that there's a bunch of kids out there today that are living that sort of life because Jack's inspired them to live that life. Maybe the family does or don't know, have the means or the ways to be able to I mean, post high school cost and is outrageous these days. So to be able to support a family and give back, because we'll miss that opportunity with Jack's, right? So why not give it back to a kid or a family that can really use it and needs it? Because wow, he impacted them, and to see a kid just do that. So that's why I'm so happy to like say that, yes, we would love to take any corporate level sponsorship or something from anybody. to help us get to that number. But I'm also just as proud and just as happy to know that there's a community that comes together that gives us those funds on that sort of grassroots sort of way. That's just beautiful, because that's who he was.
You know, I I want to say personally, thank you for allowing me to be part of not only this journey going forward with the legacy of your son and the Thornburg family. I want to thank you guys for being wonderful people and sharing your story. I know how hard it is to recant um, this story, but I also know that you guys have two of the biggest hearts on the planet. You have a wonderful father-in-law. You're surrounded by great people. You have a son that will look back on this story and say, I've got two wonderful parents. I've had a great life with my brother, and he will probably make a difference and make a name for himself. And his brother will be with him always in spirit. And for those that are in the community that have supported this family, the support goes on forever, because we never know what tomorrow will bring. We never know if we're ever going to be in this situation. But a lot of times being surprised, like Mike Tyson says, that everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Yeah.
So, we now know the story. We know the plan. Be part of Jax's story, and be the difference that people want to see. Be the difference your children want you to, what you want your children to see. So, with that said, I want to make sure, and I normally write this down for most people. I don't ever want my guests to leave with saying, "I wish I could have asked this question or shared this story," or "You have asked." So, um, Meghan, to the
Yeah.
mothers that are going through this, and Brian, I'm going to ask you a similar question. Um, what would you like to leave the listeners with? Either going through this story or the reason why you should support um, this foundation.
Uh, well, I mean, for me, I feel like it's my newfound purpose is to continue my son's legacy and to take care of my other son and to take care of my father-in-law and be there for my husband. Um, it's my mission to help others. And, we can't do that without you. So, I mean, there's just no playbook for this. You just get up every day and you keep moving forward and you keep going. And, you have your days when you need to feel like crap and you stay strong on the other days. But you have to keep living for the living, as my grandmother would always say. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to get out of bed, even if I have to tell myself to. And you go from there, one step at a time.
And Brian, I'm going to say this from one man to another. I've learned from you, and you don't even know it. I was taught um, a false narrative about what a man is supposed to be. And my father, my grandfather, father before says, you can't be emotional or show vulnerability. Um, I remember hugging you one day going through the process of this, and you left me feeling a kind of way. Speaking to the men, you are a man of men because you allowed yourself to be vulnerable and you allowed yourself to be helped. When the stereotype is, a man to be that warrior, to be strong. What message would you like to leave to the fathers, to the sons, and to the brothers that um, have to deal with this and support their wives and their family and still be that man?
There is no true definition of a man, right? And I mean that in the respects of you can't, if you think you know what you know, like Tyson said, get punched in the face the first time and you'll like your game plan goes out the window, right? So don't follow the playbook that you think the man should be or a man should be, because being weak, being vulnerable, crying, letting people see that makes them feel like, okay, it's okay to be that way, right? Throw everything out the window and just be there. Be present when you can be present. Make it a point to be present. I think you need to learn how to accept other people into your life and to know that they're there for you. You can't you can't expect people to be the way that you hope them to be. I've found people that have come to me that I never thought in a million years would be that way towards me. They've approached me and they've talked to me, and they're friends or acquaintances that I've become closer with. And some of the friends that I expected to be there for me weren't there for me, because you think people will act a certain way towards you because you want them to. You think, well, why aren't they coming up to me or talking to me or asking me how I am? And you have to realize that sometimes people just don't deal well with that. And so you can't project onto them like, hey, I want you to be this way towards me, because it's very hard for people to deal with death, and particularly the struggle of losing a loved one and losing a child. People shy away from you. But you sometimes walk around like you almost have like a scarlet letter on your chest, because they look at you and they're like, and you see them and you think, I don't wonder if they're thinking about me or talking about me. And they sometimes like walk away from you. And you're like, why won't they just come up and talk to me? Like, I would. Well, you can't throw that onto other people. So I say to any guy out there, at the end of the day, yeah, you have to be strong, but you also have to be vulnerable. Like, you have to cry and you have to lean on it. And look at your spouse, look at your significant other, and lean on them and realize that they're there for you. Like, you can't shut them off. You have to be there, and you have to like just show them that you're vulnerable as well too. I mean, you're always trying to be strong, and when you're projecting that, it looks like to the world like you're almost cold and invulnerable. Like, you're like, well, don't they ever cry? Like, aren't they sad? Well, yeah, we are, right? And I can let people see that, and so don't be afraid to let people see that. Your friends will think more of you if you cry in front of them, and if they don't, then they're not your friends. But like, it's okay. It's okay to be weak. It's okay to be struggle. It's okay to say I need help. It's okay to say I need to talk, and you just have to be weak.
I think weak is actually an adjective for actually being honest with your soul and being strong.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap this up real quick, but I want to end it on something very positive. There's going to be a day that Chase is going to be 21. He's going to be 25. He's going to be 30. He's going to be 40. 40 is going to bring in, his wife, his children, his life, and so forth. He's going to revisit one day without his parents. Avalon. He's going to be sitting on the beach with a stick in his hand, and he's going to write Jack Strong in the sand. And I want both of you to visualize, and I'm going to ask both of you to answer this question. There's going to be two bottles that are going to wash ashore. One, your grandchild is going to pick up the bottle and return it to Chase. The other is going to wash ashore at Chase's foot. He's got two bottles, and inside each bottle is one bottle has a note to Chase about the lessons you should learn, about your experiences that you've gone through. So your message in the bottle to Chase, Meghan will read, and I'll ask Brian, the second note that your grandchild is going to hold is going to be your note and your message or your life lessons. So Meghan, read me the letter that you're going to write to Chase.
I write to
be in that book. that you're going to write to Chase that will be in that bottle?
Wow, that's putting me on the spot right there. But I guess, you know, I just want him to be happy. Doing whatever it is that makes him feel that way and living life, you know, I'm a big fan of how you make others feel and the impact that you have on somebody as well. But most importantly, I think his happiness, you know, to me means so much. So, oh, that's like really putting me on the spot here. I didn't really think that one through. But I mean, I could go on and on. I would need like 10 bottles for everything that I would ever want to tell him. I think he is, for what he's been through, doing a great job. And I would praise him for just being who he is and being the kind soul that he is. And, you know, people come to me and tell me just how wonderful he is all the time. So, you know, I would definitely praise him for being just the ultimate son. But, you know, ultimately, I really just think I want him to be happy and live each day to the fullest and, you know, living like Jax too, but in his own way.
All right, Brian, you're up. And as a man, it's hard for us to express ourselves openly, especially when we're talking to another man. But this is your son, and this is your grandchild, and these are your words long after you're gone. What would that note say to Chase?
I think it'd be kind of simple, which would just be
clean your room.
No, it'd be actually it'd be what I have on my arm, which is a tattoo of Jax. It's hard to see, but basically it says "Be different," and that's what I would be telling Chase is to be different. Jax used to say that he was built different, and he taught me to be different. It's something that I have from his handwriting with his ashes on my arm that reminds me to be different. Don't take the path that everybody takes. Don't just go along with to go along to get along. Find your own way, be your own person, and be different in that, in every aspect of your life, because that's the way your brother was, right? Your brother, where most kids would cry at just taking an aspirin, that kid laughed and giggled and did dances after surgeries and medication every day, right? That's different. And that kid created that spirit. So I would just tell Chase to remember to be different.
So to my listeners, I'm going to ask you to be different. We have covered so much information. We have learned a wonderful story about the loss from two wonderful people that are parents, that are good people, that have brought a community together, that has shared tragedy, and that are thriving based on love. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope that we've enlightened you to a point that you are different. You're going to be the difference, be the change that you want others people to see. If you like what you've heard, you can go to RMK Productions and Network on our YouTube page, and you can make a comment or share it however you want to do it. If you'd like to have your story told, you can go to info@rmkproductions.org and share your story with us. And, you know, we'd love to have you as a guest. I want to thank both Meghan and Brian Thorburn. Chase, you're not here. I want to thank you for allowing your parents to share your story and to peel back some of your private life in there, clean your room. We want to thank you for that. And I can't say any more. This has been tough for me to do. I love you, love both of you, and you're welcome back. We'll bring you back, and we'll share some videos of your upcoming event in April. What is that again? Tell everyone about that.
For Purpose, April 27th. The deadline to sign up is April 1st. You can find it on Instagram under the Jax Strong Foundation, all one word. The link is in the bio. It will take you right to the registration or how to donate.
All right. And the other, to tell Jack's story, you had mentioned it early on, and I failed to have you bring it back in. Can you give us that link too? So, because I want corporate sponsorships to go on that, read the story, so they don't have to listen to the whole video, but I'd like you to. What is that link?
So it's the jackstrongfoundation.com. So it's JAX Strong Foundation, STRONG Foundation, all one word, jackstrongfoundation.com. That's sort of the central resource for everything. You can sign up for the pub crawl that we have on April 27th from there. You can also see all of the community outreach that we do, this families that we adopt at Christmas, to all of the community things that we do. And coming up soon, you will see on there the link to the memorial scholarship that we'll be partnering with the Cheshire County Community Organization on, as we'll be announcing that at our pub crawl on April 27th. Where we will be raising over $100,000 in scholarships to the 2031 class in Phoenixville School District for celebrating the life of our son.
And that's what we're going to do. We are going to celebrate corporate sponsors. If you want to be part of a dream, reach out, play this video, share it with your board of directors, companies. When you go through and have your people go through hard times, support them, as well as both Megan's company as well as Brian's company has done, friends and family. We can't do this thing alone. I normally ask if you had one ask and you can make one dream come true. And the reason why I asked this, because I'm going into my 3rd year. I've had 5 people on my show as guests that strangers have granted them their one life's wish. And I always say ask, A-S-K. If I were to ask either Brian or Megan what that one ask would be, and the reason why I'm saying this, because when I built this foundation, everyone was trying to tell me how to market my company. I said I wanted to grow this company the same way I grew my business as a fitness influencer, one person at a time, and surround myself with people that have a high call to action. The people that are in my life, like Megan and Brian, they are not people that drive by an accident. They're the type of people that stop to help, which is, well, my listeners and my followers. So if I've got someone out there that's willing to stop to help the Jack's Strong Foundation or the Jack Foundation, Megan or Brian, what would that one ask be? And I said, ask big. What would that be? And then we'll wrap up the show.
Do you want me to take it?
Yeah.
So, there's an obvious one wish we both as a family and anybody would wish that we had, right?
I know that one.
But we have a goal of raising over $100,000 to give back to his class, to give back to a family, to give back to a kid that we truly believe, and to as many kids as possible that we truly believe exemplify his spirit, right? And we have to find a way to surpass $100,000. Like, we just have to. Like, we have a couple of years to raise it. But if there is anybody out there that wants to make a wish to make that like happen sooner than later, I mean, we would welcome it 100%. We want to make sure that we get there. And that'll mean something to us, because as a family, you want to give back to the community that was there to help us. And you also want to find a way to kind of tie that into what it is that was important about Jax and our son. And we believe giving back and changing a family's life in an impactful way. I see scholarships all the time, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, and I think that's wonderful, and I think they're great. But when we came up with this idea, we were like, what if we can give a family $100,000? Like, that will change a kid's life, what if we can give $50,000 scholarships to a family or whatever? We just want to raise over $100,000 and well over $100,000 to help change a life, because Jax would have wanted that. So if there's a family, there's somebody, there's an organization, a community, somebody out there that wants to reach out to help us directly do that or give us advice or help to make that happen over the next couple of years, we welcome it.
All right. To my listeners, you've heard the ask, and I know you got it. This is a great place to be. It doesn't make a difference on gender or whatever the skin color, whatever the case may be. They're looking for a child that they can go ahead and provide an opportunity for in the name of their son, Jax. College education is very expensive, extremely expensive. And a lot of kids don't go to college because their family can't afford to send them. Think about this dollar or dollars, providing an education for someone that would not ever have an opportunity to have an education. I was one of those childs, and someone helped me. So look what happened to me, and just think what your donations can be. So with that said, my grandfather always said, now I'm going to go back, and I'm not even going to do that, because I'm going to read the lines of Meghan Thorburn. She says Jack was a remarkable child with a huge heart. So when you make your donations, I'm paraphrasing Meghan's words, focus on that. So my grandfather always said, when you get to a point in life that you can help someone, it is your duty to do so. Reach one, teach one. And I want to thank my friends, Meghan and Brian Thorburn. Chase, we thank you. And we'll fade to black. And with that said, we're out.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.